Hi there. Thanks for joining today. We're going to be chatting with Nicole Kincaid. She's an energy work specialist that I had the privilege of being introduced to about a year ago. And since then, we've worked together on a few homes that we've had on the market for sale, but also she's worked with a few of our buyers as well. So wanted to just kind of chat with her today about energy clearing. What does that mean? Learn a little bit about how she got into the work that she does now, as well as just kind of touch on a few fun stories she has in her line of work. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and hope everyone is doing well. Well, thank you for joining this morning.
Totally, yeah.
So we initially met at one of our kind of exclusive breakfast meetings with a whole bunch of other brokers, and it was kind of, I sat right by you, and as you were talking, I got really, really excited about just the services you offer, and you're just such a lovely person too, and have a great energy yourself. And since then, I've had you come in and do some energy clearing and energy work in some of the listings that we've had on the market that kind of just needed a different feel. And it was just such a great process going through that. I know you work with some buyers too, and just felt like wanted to have it's appropriate time of year as we're going into fall, and we're kind of in the right before Halloween. And a lot of these different things kind of come up during this time about different energy and spirit sources and all that sort of thing. And so wanted to kind of just introduce you to our world. And not a lot of people know that kind of the energy work, space clearing, Stuffology exists, and wanted to just kind of introduce you to everyone here.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here.
You want to kind of roll into just defining like what energy work and space clearing is?
Yes. Okay. So, energy work is basically the overall term that I use for the different things inside of it, which are space clearing and stuffology. And so, I kind of define it as anything that I can do to help influence the energy of a home and influence how a home feels. And we're all kind of aware of like how our homes feel on some level. And with stuffology, I think a really easy kind of definition I use is it's the stuff that I work with that you can see, and then the energy work, the space clearing piece is the stuff I work with that you can't see. So it's the actual like vibe of the home. Yeah.
Sweet. And then so do you want to kind of talk a little bit about how you got into this space?
Okay, yeah, I was kind of thinking about that lately because it comes up a lot when when people get to know me a little bit. And about 20 years ago or so, I started to attend a postgraduate program at Bastyr University. And I did that because I was really sick, and I had gone on and on for months and months without resolve around like a health issue that doctors just couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, and it was really frustrating. And I finally went to this doctor, Ashley, and she was so serious, and I was sitting across the desk from her, and she was like, I think I figured out what's wrong with you. And I'm like, great, because I was so sick. I just didn't ironically have any energy. I mean, that was actually my condition. And I'd gone through all of the tests. This has been like months and months, right? And she told me that she thought I was depressed. And I thought that was really fascinating, but I just couldn't relate to it. Like I was like, I just don't think that's it. And so I left the office, and I really had this like, a little personal come to Jesus with myself around, okay, so allopathic medicine doesn't like, that's not it. Like that, like I've done my due diligence. What's going on here? And so I just started researching everything that had to do with like energy. Like I just took it really literal, like energy. And I ended up like 4 or 5 months later applying to this program at Bastyr, got in, and I started healing. But I was thinking about that story, and it's a little bit incomplete if I don't also mention that, like, I think a lot of us are a product of our childhoods and how we were brought up. And I was always this very, very, very sensitive kid. Like, I was the one who you would walk into a room and I knew if someone was upset, I knew if something had gone awry, I knew if something wasn't quite right. And I mean, I didn't know that as a kid, and like that wasn't a very popular way to be as a child, but it was just who I was. And I also just really like in my family of origin, there was a lot of like need for alertness, like you had to be on, and we moved around a lot. I went to like 13 elementary schools and the whole thing. And so with that sensitivity and with like the need to be hyper vigilant and on and alert in my family system, like that kind of gave me like this sixth sense, but it also like really wore my battery down after like decades, right?
Totally.
I think that's what happened in my late 20s is I couldn't tolerate the stress anymore. So when I went to Bastyr, long story short, I was astonished. It was the first time in my life that I started relating to energy and being like, "Oh my God, I don't have to just be like a victim to this. Like it's coming at me and I don't know what to do with it." Like I actually
Yeah.
started to learn how to actually work with the energy of spaces. Well, it got into that later, but it was a really astonishing thing. And when I did that, it was like my Harry Potter moment, I call it. Because after the it was like game on. Like I figured like I was like, oh my gosh, like I can do this. I can survive. I can like thrive in this world with being able to like work and perceive and feel energies around me and like and know what to do with it now.
Gotcha. And so then how did you know to be able to, I guess, help other people with that?
Oh, it's a really fascinating story too. So from the time I was 19, I had my very first Stuffology client, and that's this work I do with clutter clearing and organizing, like my spin on it. And so I've always been obsessed with spaces. Like I just love spaces. And I love beauty, and I love how they feel. And I've always just talked to homes and like felt like they were like living, breathing
They
organisms, and
are.
they are. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Thank
that's
you
funny.
for
That's a
saying
quote
that.
that I constantly use too with people and even buyers, houses that are old, any home structure, they're living and breathing things.
They,
You have to
they
keep them alive. You have to feed them. You have to, yeah.
yes, tend to them and nurture them,
Hmm.
and and so I had always done this stuffology work or whatever. And so I get to best year, and now that's like, like in my, like 20 years ago, a little bit more than that actually. I think it's been 23. And I'd quit my job and all of this and to go to school. And so then I went to work at a wine bar in Ballard here in Seattle, Washington. And I at that time had I think I had gotten through the best year program, and now I was working directly with a teacher who was teaching me space clearing, and he teaches all over the world, right? And I was like astonished about how amazing it felt to do this work. So the way I got into it, Ashley, is I started offering like space clearing sessions to my customers at this wine bar, like the regulars, not just any like Joe Blow, right? But
Yeah.
so I would like I'd be like, hey, do you want? And this is what blew me away. Like they would come back like the next week or a couple of days later or whatever, and they'd be like, you're never gonna believe it. Like, the kids have stopped fighting, like our health has changed, like we feel great, like we've been cleaning up and doing decluttering, like something's completely shifted. And I was like as surprised as anyone. I was like, you're kidding me. And so I just kept going with it, and I just kept offering it, and I just kept seeing results, and one thing led to another.
That's awesome. And so then at that point, you kind of caught on to being able to kind of help real estate agents too, and offering that service to kind of our industry as well.
Yeah, it was kind of a wild trajectory, but
Yeah.
how it really happened was back in 2018, I got invited to speak at a 100-person real estate breakfast. And I didn't really know there was going to be that many agents there, to be honest with you, but I was really excited for this event. And I went in, and there was like a little roundtable discussion between me, one other gal, and then the man who was leading the discussion. And I could just, Ashley, I could just see with the people in the audience that they just completely understood what I was talking about when I was talking about energy and spaces and properties not selling. And it was that moment on, I'll never forget it, because it was 10/31/2018. And from that moment on, like I just had like real estate agents are my number one client base, because when
Yeah.
homes are selling, it's not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
When they look great and you've done
Well,
everything, like what is going on? Why
yeah,
is
and
it
sometimes
like,
you walk into the space and you do know the history, right? And you want to kind of clean slate that for, going to market, or if you're representing a buyer, clean slate the house for them, right? It's like a new energy, new space, new feel. You want it to feel as new as possible.
yes. Yes. And what I found was that like agents, so many agents are so perceptive and they're very intuitive and they already have what I was talking about with myself is like that deep sensitivity to like what's living in the space, as far as the energetics and the emotions and the thoughts and the experiences and traumas and the whole range, but they don't necessarily want to deal with it like themselves. They don't want, they're
Or
like,
don't know how,
and
right?
they don't know how.
Yeah.
Um, and and I can understand that because it took me decades to really get to a place where I feel like there isn't any property that I couldn't go into and like impact a change. But it's it's challenging because space clearing, the energy that, that working with the energy is all about the perceiving of it and the feeling of it. And so if you don't want to like feel uncomfortable stuff, like you shouldn't do space clearing. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, because it's all about connecting in with that energy and then like having influence and being able to like give it this moment and this opportunity to change.
Nice. So that's a good segue into kind of what your process is then. If you're
Yeah.
good with talking about that, because I know, and probably every house is different in terms of, you have a general approach, but it's different based on the reactions and the different things that you're feeling.
Yeah. The what is my process question is like the hardest question sometimes that I get, I think. Because it's like so simple it takes a lifetime to explain, my teacher used to say. And I think I like to start off with like some nuts and bolts. And like one of those are that I don't use Palo Santo and I don't use salts, although I used to like used to burn stuff in the beginning. I don't do that anymore. I don't use like bells and whistles.
Okay. Crystals.
I don't use crystals. I don't use St. Joseph's, even though I know a lot
Mhm.
of agents and do, and I don't judge for that. Like I'm like, okay, you do you if that's what's working. But my process is very, very different than that. And oh, another one nuts and bolt, because people always ask, is that I always just kind of like budget about 2 hours with a home, just to kind of like if you were going to see a psychologist for the first time, you'd have like that like time to sit in and to answer the questionnaire and to get to know the home and to see what the issue is. And then like that's how it feels to me. Like the home is getting a nice big therapy session, but my job when I go in a home is I describe it like a Venn diagram where like there's these three, or if the client is there, oftentimes real estate agents don't want to stick around for it. That's totally fine. So it's like me in the home, right? And then when I walk into the home, because I've been invited into the home, like we're now in the part in between where the circles are overlapping, and I call that shared space. And so when I walk into the shared space, we're in what I call one informational field. And so when I'm in the field, all of a sudden I start getting all of the information from the home and I start reading it. And people are like, how do you know that? And I don't like to use the term like psychic or anything like that. I'm just like, we all think we're all separate and that we're all individuals, and in some terms we all, but there's also the paradox of us all being in one shared moment, and in one, like there's one thing going on kind of a thing, right? And so the reason I say that is because when I go in and I connect with a space that way, I'm like, whoa, I start feeling so much information. And all of a sudden, like I'll be in a kitchen and I'll just start getting pictures of what has gone on. And like sometimes it'll be like 1950s or 1980s or or I'll see something about the land, or I'll be like, whoa. And I just start feeling and sensing into that information on such a deep level that the connection of that actually has like kind of a transmutation effect. Like it feels like it got to be touched, heard, seen, and connected with, and then it lets go of like these bubbles of information that are existing on the timeline. And I see spaces just like transform and shift right before my very eyes. Like they become brighter and they become clearer, they become quieter. I can feel like a settling down. I often like feel like I'm processing grief or anger or the whole range of emotions. And then I just, speaking of process, tour the home that way. I just go from like room to room to room, and peel away at these layers. And after a couple hours, like the home starts feeling really, really different.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so you said basically every room could have a different feeling, and you have kind of different and I know even in the history in which you've done these for me, you've nailed, I guess, what may have occurred. Let's say if I knew the client prior or I had some sort of history, what maybe their general situation was of why maybe they left, or maybe what went on in the home. You actually have 100% nailed those different scenarios and situations. And then you have a write up that you send afterwards, just kind of giving your thoughts and feelings of that. But it's been kind of amazing to have you walk into these homes and be like, some of them like, wow, how did you know that? Like no one would know that really walking into, other than maybe a general feeling. And maybe it's, some aesthetics kind of contribute to that or whatnot, but really the focus on the energy, you would never know what the actual history was of the homeowners or maybe what the space it went through, right?
Yeah, I'm really grateful, I have to honestly say, to real estate agents because of them not staying in the
Yeah.
environment, like not because what happened is that like a lot before the moment that where I just got a lot of real estate business, and then that's continued and that's been wonderful. I used to mainly work with people in their own homes, right? And then I would kind of hear the narrative of what had gone on and all of that. Then when that shifted and real estate agents were like, bye, or like, here's your key
Here's the
code,
keys.
I literally actually was like, well, what am I going to tell them? I mean, I'm charging,
Yeah.
fee. I'm doing this service, and I can't just say, oh, I cleared your property, hope
Hmm.
it goes well. And it really deepened my work so much to be able to just like puzzle out and just feel and just to trust like
Hmm.
the imagery and the feelings and the sensations. And then I just start, like you said,
Put it in
right,
writing.
putting it in writing
Yeah.
and it just comes out kind of like a little bit like a story form. And
Hmm.
there was these two clients that were with me one day, and they had their home had been staged, but they were the ones that had hired me to clear because they were like, there's just something that they were, oh, I know, they were really attached to their home, like they really loved it, but they were moving and they were happy about the move. And but they were like, we just know that we need some, like we need to get our energy out of this home, so they hired me, and I was in this one room that was staged like an office, but I kept like pivoting like this, and I'm like, and they were at the door. They were like standing in the doorway, like watching me. And I'm like, and I just kept looking, and I'm like, there's something like, then I looked at him, and I'm like, your desk wasn't here. It was over there. And I go, and I like literally told them exactly the layout of how it had been when they had lived there. And they're
Yeah.
like, but it was so
Oh,
obvious to me, Ashley. I was like, it's so
yeah.
like, because the energy was just pulling me right into one direction, and then it just fell into place. And then I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, this is why I'm standing over here. This is why I feel pulled over here.
Yeah.
That's where the energy is.
Yep, definitely. Do you have anything else in your process that you kind of want to mention?
There's this one thing that I think is really important to mention because, and when I get a referral from someone, I'm always so grateful when the person that's referred me has told the person that they're referring this to me about this. And that is that because like the work is very, like I'm using like the element of consciousness, right? And awareness to connect into this the dynamic of energy that's like we have downloaded into our spaces, our experiences, boom, 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 angry, 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 upset, 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 COVID, 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 health, wellness, the whole range, right? Like, boom, like in our spaces. And then our spaces start to feel rattled and like, well, when I go and work with a space, like I feel that. And it's not just like, but what happens is that I often, like my eyes start watering a lot, my nose runs, I get really, really burpy. And then, and it just it's just what happens. Like the body needs to process it. And I did find out like early on in my practice that in 5,000-year-old like Chinese medicine, like five element theory, like it actually talks about how the body like detoxifies and processes information through eye watering, nose running, burping, yawning.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I always
This
tell
is,
people before I get started, because we'll have like a conversation
yeah.
when I
You'll
get
just
there.
belch.
Well, and then I'm like, okay, but then I can kind of see myself starting to like feel into the space, and I'm like,
Yeah,
I'll tell you something. They're like, what? And I'm like, okay, so I'm feeling all this, and it's gonna start
yeah.
happening. I start burping a lot. And they're like, what? But then they do too a lot. Like the clients are
Oh,
like, oh, they can like, if it's their spaces, they feel connected and they
yeah.
start feeling energy too.
Good. I was hoping you were gonna touch on that today too, because that's an interesting part of your process.
Yes.
Good. So now
Yeah.
moving on, do you have any like special cases that you've had in the past with the energy space work that, either spooky or just kind of, bizarre that kind of shocked you?
Oh, so many.
Uh,
But so many. I mean, energy work is really shocking sometimes. Like it's like I
yeah.
can't. I mean, if I had $1 for every time I said I can't believe that just happened. But I have a kind of a fun story, and I had a real estate agent refer her clients to me, and it was after the house had sold, and it was kind of a young couple, and they had bought their very first ever home, and they were like in love with this home. And I guess like around 9 months or so had gone by, and it was over in West Seattle, and they were like, we're gonna sell, like we can't take it anymore. And apparently like one of the guys worked, I mean the it was a male female partnership, a marriage, and then the man worked in tech and the woman worked in banking, so, and they were like, we don't I mean, well, actually the woman wouldn't show up because she was so scared, but what was going on was that they like literally were like, we can't even believe we're saying this, but we're like literally being terrorized by a ghost. And I'm like, what? Oh my goodness, and like they it was an upstairs downstairs, and they would just like hear this thing running, and it was particularly picking on, they said, the female, like the wife, and to the point where she was just had not slept, she did it, and they were just beside themselves, and they're like,
Oh,
we're gonna move, like we can't take it anymore, like this
yeah.
is our dream home, but we just can't take it. So the man met me at the home, and he's like, I just can't even believe I'm here right now doing this, but like we don't even know what else to do, da da da. And so I kept telling him, you like, ghost energy is really unique, like it doesn't clear in the way like a lot of the other kinds of energy, like emotional energy or earth energy or technology energy clears. It needs an actual human system to disconnect through. Okay, so that kind of sounds a little bit weird, but it's really sad too. So if anybody
Hmm.
ever thinks they have a friendly ghost, like, no, you want to actually like help the ghosts go, because they're not supposed to be a disembodied aspect of themselves, right?
Hmm.
So I definitely like picked up on this ghost, and I described him perfectly because they had a psychic come out earlier, like a month earlier, who told them exactly who this guy was hanging out. But then I was like, the guy didn't like work with, and he was like, no, they just told us everything about the ghost, and then the guy left. And I'm like, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I told the client, I go, listen, when when this disembodied energy is ready to go, you'll see it, because I'll get very animated, and it'll feel
Hmm.
whoosh, it'll feel really obvious. You'll see a
Like
big,
releasing, basically.
yes. And
Yeah.
he's like, okay, okay. And then it got really, really, really quiet. Like we were just hanging out, kind of talking about the space, and kind of, just, which is kind of like, you kind of have to be a little bit like
Hmm.
with ghost energy. You can't be so direct. Like they don't want that often. And all of a sudden, like it just got like pinpoint quiet. And the ghost, I can't believe I'm laughing. It's not really, I mean, it is kind of funny, but it didn't actually come through me. It went right through him. And like I'm looking at this guy, and he goes, like, I mean, you can imagine this guy in tech, and he's looking at me, and he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And like, I mean, and I kid you not, Ashley, his
Oh my
hair,
God.
like his whole like hair, like everything got fluffy. Like it went whoop. And,
Oh my God.
and I was like, wow. And he was like, you know what? The age was that. And then I was like, yeah, you just did it. You
Yeah.
did it. And then literally this happens almost every time. Like he just like burst out crying and he was like, oh my God.
Oh,
I feel so I feel he was like so grateful and he was so happy and you could totally feel the difference in the home and the whole thing. And so it ended up being a happy story, but it was
brilliant. Did the wife come back and everything went away and it was good?
yeah, it was all good. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's a
There's a
good
whole
one.
story with the guy and why he was there, but I won't get into that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Well, I think that's a great story. Do you have any other ones you want to touch on?
Oh,
I love hearing them. I could do this all day long. You should have your own little podcast about all these different situations you find yourself in.
I know I could. I mean, there's so many like really honestly sort of dark stories about because ghosts kind
Yeah.
of can be kind of complicated and whatnot, but
Yeah.
I definitely I'll tell you one thing like in the beginning you have to acclimate your body, like you
Hmm.
really have to like whoa, I'm not used to feeling that, and so if you aren't, then you want to like give your body time to metabolize what you're tuning into, right?
Hmm.
So that said, like way early on, I was up in Bellingham doing a clearing, and I really was very young in my little baby energy worker days. And and the clients were very kind of like bossy with me and like, oh, but we just need you to look at one more thing and da da da. And I was like not so as boundaried as I am, like not as containerized as I am now around like my process and knowing knowing what worked. I wasn't like being
Hmm.
a boss lady in that moment, like, and I kept tuning in. And I could just feel like that I had like gone beyond my threshold.
Hmm.
I was still working at the wine bar at the time. And so I drove from Bellingham to Ballard to go to work. And I walked in and my coworker, she was also the manager. She goes, "What the heck?" And I go, "What?" And she's like you need to go look in the mirror. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
And so I went to the bathroom, and I mean it's not the greatest story because it's kind of gross, but like I just had an eye that was like completely like it looked like I put like yell like it was like yellowed out. Like my whole
Oh,
eye was just
yeah.
it was like and it was so weird and puffy and yellow, and like it actually looked like it had like something had stuck to it. And I was like, oh my goodness, like what is that? And I started to feel really chilled and really freaked out. And the reason why it's kind of like a good story to share is because I went home. I mean, I couldn't like wait on people that night, right?
No.
And I went home and I emailed my teacher, who I think was like in Switzerland at the time or something like that. And I'm like, I've had a really weird thing happen. And he was like, and I wrote a blog about it actually called
Hmm.
Lifting Beyond Your Weights, because I had just done too much, and I just tuned in too hard and I just stayed in the field too long, and I didn't give my body a break to about my body a chance to really metabolize everything that was feeling into. And I went
Hmm.
home and it was like around 4 o'clock. And I remember waking up the whole next day, like at 6. Like my body just needed like 14 hours of sleep. And I
Oh,
woke
wow.
up and I felt good and refreshed, but like I had definitely lifted beyond my weight set on that. And that's
Yeah.
what happened since, but it was really like, what the heck? Like just to see something just that had like manifested right on my face.
And the fact that you didn't even feel it or couldn't even like you didn't even know it was someone, that told you there was an
No, I
issue.
mean, I remember feeling really out of it on the way home from
Okay.
from Bell. I just was like kind of like in a little bit of an altered state. Like I was like, oh, like I just don't, and I just kind of was like, just get to work, and the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Oh gosh. So, we did have a question though of your previous story. Did you ever find the reason why the guy was still hanging around the house?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Um,
Do you want
he,
to share that or no?
yeah, he,
Okay.
um, the he had it was in West Seattle, and he had been in he had been associated with like the whole marine industry,
Mhm.
and he had spent, and so and he was the original owner, and had spent every last dime on this home for himself and his child, and it was his like pride and
Baby.
joy, and he had lived there, they had lived there their entire life. And then and that was like maybe early-ish 1900s or whatever, like 1920s or 30s or something. And then they had sold the home. He, you know, had they had sold the home, and um they had some extremely unsavory people that had lived there, like
Mm.
really abusive to the home. And the man had like kind of like never, like he was so attached to the home that he like he didn't go away. And so when these other people moved in and were really like big time drug use,
Rough. Yeah.
rough, you know, like he was really this disembodied, you know, person, like that he just stayed attached to the home, kind of like a good ghost, you know, in a way.
Hmm.
Ghost turned bad, maybe, I don't know. But he, I mean, but he was just upset. He was so upset. And it's exactly what the psychic had said before too, right? That the guy was like really upset, you know, and so those people eventually, like the house had gone into, I can't remember what it's called, like on a short sale type
Foreclosure. Yeah. Or yeah, yeah.
foreclosure. It had gone
Foreclosure. Yeah.
foreclosure, exactly. And that's when these two people came in, but the guy was like not having any of it. Like he just had felt like completely upset and you know,
Yeah.
damaged,
He's,
you know, like he was just like, no, that was my pride and joy, these people
yeah.
ruined it, da, da, da. And so he was reactive to that.
Did he
Yeah.
pass away in the house? That was another question.
um I don't remember that detail. I
Got
don't
it.
think I can't remember. He
Got
could
it.
have.
And you've had those situations though too. One of the stories you told me is you were, it's a condo that you were clearing out, and I guess the lady had passed away in the home too.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, and the way that it was staged was that like they'd like the real estate agent had put like this big, like this chair like right where she had had her kind of like where she had convalesced basically, right?
Hmm.
And I just sat in that chair, and it was like she'd gone through a lot of chemo and stuff like that. And I
Hmm.
just remember just feeling like wow, like chemo has like a really specific signature to it too, like medicine does, RX
Hmm.
in general. And so I just was like wow, and I just could not, I just kept telling her like there's something about that one area of the home, like right in the living room, like right da da da, where it's just was so heavy. And so I mean, and it wasn't because she wasn't ready to go, you know, like she was ready to go. I mean, she was like at peace with it. She wasn't hanging
Yeah.
out home,
It was just a feeling.
but it was because of everything that she had
Hmm.
gone through right on that spot, you know, like right in that little like geographical area inside her unit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you gravitated towards that because that was a feeling that you had. The agent didn't tell you that that's where it had happened or where she had been. Yeah.
No.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Agents love to not tell me anything.
Yep. Yeah, I
I'm
know.
fine with that.
Yeah. That's good. So as far as, well, actually, I have a question for you. So, people, when you tell them what you do and you kind of go into these stories, and whether it's, the ghost energies or the other different types of energies or whatnot, do you ever get people who are very opposed to this type of thinking, or maybe what you do? Do you ever see that opposition, or people just don't quite understand?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
I I think that sometimes, like, you know, like a husband and wife will hire me, or a partners will hire me, and like one of them is like,
Mm.
I know what, this is so
Yeah.
great, we're spending money on this or whatever.
Yeah.
And 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 I really I really work so hard, I think, to communicate to people how I feel about energy, which is so like just very normal language, you know, and
Hmm.
very, I mean, I know that it is a little bit esoteric still, a little bit on the woo-woo side, but
Hmm.
I just think of it as like, um, anyone who's been to like a Seahawks game and you walk, or a Pink concert or Taylor Swift or whatever, and you go in, you're like, oh my gosh, like you immediately you're like, whoa, like you just get caught up in the,
Hmm.
energy, and it's like there's a whole field of like energy around us all the time, and we humans influence it all the time, in big arenas, or the other example that I use is like oftentimes people like, you go, like say you go into your workspace and you get into a meeting and you walk in, you're a few minutes late and you're like, whoa,
Hmm.
was there just like a heavy like what just happened in this conference room? Like something is amiss, That's energy too, So or we know that the energy of like how like, oh my God, that space feels so great, right? And so I just try and distill it down into terms of that make sense to people that they can
Like
relate,
simplifying, basically.
yeah, they can relate
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
um and then some people aren't just, there's not, it just isn't their language, and that's fine too. And I still, my work is still impactful whether they believe it or not, so
Hmm.
oftentimes it's really funny because there's a lot, oftentimes it is the exact person who doesn't believe in it who is having like the big experience with it, and I love when that happens around like, something's going on for you during this appointment. And they're like, yes, and they are like, I don't know what's going on, but this is, they're feeling something
They
they didn't
feel it.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's again a good segue into how, so if someone's in their home and they feel like something, what are the feelings, I guess, or triggers that they would have to know that maybe they need to bring you in to kind of clear the space? Like, is there anything that you tell, that are indicators there that people could use?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many, but like people who have had like a trauma occur in the home, or I get a lot of people that hire me because like the home that they're moving into, maybe there was a divorce that occurred there, or they're leaving because there was a
Hmm.
divorce situation, they're going through a divorce. I get people who like aren't sleeping well, dogs that like, I had a family that hired me because their dog, they've never had any problems with their dogs at all, and then all of a sudden they move to a new home and the dogs will not settle. Like pets are so sensitive.
Cats. Yep.
Cats
Cats
are
too.
so sensitive to energy. Yeah. Um, I've been, I don't mean to make light of it, but I've been calling it COVID homes lately because COVID
Hmm.
really changed the grid of a lot, like how a lot of homes feel. And
Hmm.
like, they just don't like, they like the homes were like, what are you doing here all the time? Like just there's like, I call it the trifecta of irritation, agitation, and frustration. Like that, just like you just walk into the home and you're like, oh, that is a, like to get some of that dynamic out of it is really good. There's also this thing, and I'm going to write about it here. I've got a like an article I'm working on about your home either being too yin or too yang, and those are like Chinese medicine terms or whatever, but they're really really important because in very simplified terms, like the yin is the quieter, calmer, it's represented by the moon, the color black, the underneath the earth, emotions, softness, the seed in the ground energy, right? And we all know the symbol, like the yin and yang,
Hmm.
right? And then the yang is like boom, bursting out energy, represented by sun, represented by the verb do, go, like
Hmm.
um well, we all have a representation of yin and yang in our homes too. And sometimes our homes are too yinny and sometimes they're too yang, right? And if you have a too yinny home, you can just be too lethargic, like too sleepy, not enough like pep, not enough get up, like
Hmm.
really, you have company over, they don't want to leave, like, oh, it's too right. If you have too much yang in your home, you might be sleeping but you're not like getting the REM sleep, like
Hmm.
you're just too activated, like the home has got too much electricity, like like too much, there's too much um
Maybe vibration,
yeah, what's that?
like a vibration.
Yeah, it's the energetics of the home,
Yeah.
how it
Mm-hmm.
feels, like the vibration of like, you're not
Mm-hmm.
sitting down, you get to go to project, da, 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 da. And that can be like bad for people because then they don't like your bodies need time to like rest and repair and heal up. And if your environment is too amplified, it can't do that, right? If your environment is too low in energy, it isn't
Yeah.
either. So you kind of want like a between what I call a 40-60 range of yin yang. Like you want, because with 40-60, you always get the perpetuation of growth, because you
Mm-hmm.
get turnover. 50-50, it's like, But a lot of times that's not occurring in people's spaces for a number of reasons. I mean, like energy is very much um about also repetition. And so if you've got patterns that exist in your home and they might be like old just because they've had time to mature, and then we kind of keep thinking those things, like you've got a worrier, and then the worrier just keeps worrying and worrying and worrying, and then that
Mm-hmm.
worrying over years and decades just becomes like, oh, like the home just feels really full of
Like a worried
worry.
home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it just, you kind of,
Interesting.
you don't need then those people any there in their energetic systems. And then you have someone new come into the home and they're like, say they're looking at it, they walk right through the door. I want this home. It checks all the boxes. We love it. But they're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's something I don't like about how this home feels. Like
Yep.
they're not a warrior, you know?
So then so with the yin and yang or the ratio that you were just talking about, like how do you, I guess, balance that? And that's because the people themselves in the house have that energy, correct? Not the items within the home.
It's just the energy that's living in
The
the home.
energies. Yeah,
Yeah. And
got it.
so I kind of like to describe it as like when I walk into a home with a client, I always ask them to imagine like a big, huge white piece of paper, like the
Hmm.
blank piece of paper, like a big billboard. And I go, imagine like, okay, your home was built in 1975 and now it's 2023. Okay. And then across this big banner of white piece of paper, imagine that everything, I mean, this is quantum physics, get a little bit, but like imagine that every thought, everything that's happened, every belief, every emotion, every experience, all of the life events, all the world events, everything that you've had to process or whatever, good, bad, and indifferent, is like spans the timeline of this piece of paper, like millions and millions of black dots, right? Then imagine again that along this timeline, like 1975, 2023, there's like what I call heavily blotted dots, like like
Yep.
inky spots. Those are where like traumas occurred or big
Bigger events.
upsets,
Yeah.
bigger events, right? So you might only be living in the home from like 19, not only, but like nine, 1999 to 2023 or what, at any time, but you could still be coexisting with all of those dots, all of that information, plus what you've added to it, right?
Hmm.
So then my job is to go in and I call it just lifting the dots off the page so that you're timelining it all the way forward to like right here, right now,
Got
like
it.
whatever the date, October 27th, 2020.
No, clean
And
slate.
yeah, yeah, clean slate. Exactly. So it gives those homeowners and the owner occupants like, oh my gosh, okay, like we've cleared.
We've cleared it all. Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
We had another question here that's like, are there things we could do for ourselves when we encounter negative feelings in a home? So if you're in your home versus, maybe just little things that you could think of that someone could do.
Um, I'm a really big believer in intention. And I think speaking to our homes has and really getting to know them in a more animated version is really powerful. So I tell people to like talk to your homes, like um when you come in and when you leave, and like looking around at what you've got in your environment, and like kind of developing, I think we're just so, I think we're also used to just kind of barging into our homes a little
Yeah.
bit. I do it too, but like stopping and pausing and being like bringing the home into the conversation, um with it being like a part of our lives, like a big part of our lives. And another thing, and I don't know, people don't usually like when I say this, but I am a really, really, I mean, if you want to change the energy of your home faster than anything, start clutter clearing. I mean, it's so powerful. Like I used clutter clearing as a coping mechanism when I was a kid, and it was like there is not, it is so, it's such a pristine way to like clarify the energy in your space, and don't do a little, like a lot at a time. Like that is the number one buzzkill for like being able to like balance out energy. You have, I mean, even just one little drawer, because it makes you feel so different, and it drops such like a different signal in your home when you've given attention to something,
Hmm.
like to the things in your home, because your things that are living in your home, like they're all carrying energy too at times, and like oftentimes they don't even represent who we are right here right now on October 26th. They're like, I mean, I work with people all the time. They're like, I have no idea why I have this. I mean, it's no, like, I'm not judging them or anything, but they just don't know why they have what they have. And so
Yeah.
you've got all of this like stale energy all throughout your home, just because we don't, it's not an easy thing to deal with. So the easiest thing to deal with regard to that part of like how you can shift the energy yourself with clutter clearing is just to say it one more time, is really just do tiny little portions at a time.
Hmm.
Like just do, the little basket where your brushes are, I mean, like just do your sock drawer, I mean, and do it with it, like literally go through it and be like, I wonder what's here. This is
Hmm.
really fascinating.
Yeah.
Do
That's good.
one, like either your refrigerator or your freezer, but not both, I mean, and just,
Just chip away at it basically and make sure
yeah,
that you have intention while you're doing it. You're not just doing to do it.
yeah,
That's what
you're
I'm
doing it
hearing.
because
Yeah.
you're like, I really want this home to represent, like I really want it to feel good in here.
Yeah. Nice. So is that a part of what you do for the Stuffology services?
Yeah, that's my Stuffology work.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
gotcha. And you actually do it with the homeowner or the resident, and you go through and kind of give them consult on the things that they can do.
Yeah, we work, I only work, I mean, I don't only, but like I do 2 hour time segments when I do Stuffology with people, because I want them to have gas in the tank at the end of it. I want them to have like a
Yeah.
positive experience of it, not like,
Hmm.
oh, so draining.
Well,
I
yeah. To-do
hated it.
list, to-do list, to-do
Yeah.
list. Yeah.
And a lot of times, like people just feel like that's a drudgery topic,
Yep.
But I think it's the most illuminating thing to see why we have what we have. And so if I can get people to like fall in love a little bit with like the process of it, which they are always so astonished that they liked it more than they thought they would, and just do little segments again at a time, 2 hours. And then we just go, they're like, what are we gonna do? Where are we gonna go? And we just have a conversation. We just pick a little area.
Hmm.
I literally just stick with them the entire time. I don't, so it's so funny because people are like, "Oh, I just found this, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go put it back." And I'm like, "No, no, no," because yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want them to like divert in
Stuff.
that way. Yeah, it just breaks the circuitry a little bit.
Hmm.
So I have like a little system that I use, a very powerful system of how we stay containerized, so
Hmm.
that they can, and they love it. People love it. It's really
Sweet.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I should do that. I've not done that one. I should do that. So we're probably going to wrap up here. I think we hit everything that we wanted to talk about. And then I just had one other question for you. Do you have any recommendations for maybe books or any podcasts or anything that kind of is geared towards energy clearing or energy work?
Okay, so you could go to NicoleKincaid.com. That's me.
Yes,
I
you're
write
the
about
number
it
one
all. I
resource.
write about it all the time. I love to. Um, I have, I'll be really honest. I've been really challenged to find um people who do the work in the way that I do the work. And I don't mean to sound like, oh, my way is the only way, but
Mm,
like it is unique. And I don't use the whole, I don't use tools, right? And it's
Hmm.
very easy to like feel like we need apparatuses to like shift things. Well, then what if you don't have that with you? Like then you can't,
Hmm.
you know, my I should say that my teacher is amazing. He's a little elusive, I guess you could say. He lives in Europe, and he doesn't come to he doesn't come to the United States anymore, but his name is Eric Dowsett, ironically,
Hmm.
.com. And he's great. He's got some books and stuff like that. But yeah, I love to share the information. Check out my
Gotcha.
website.
Well, you're kind of pioneering or pioneer of your own field. So that doesn't surprise me that there's a lot of people and there's a lot of different approaches to this. And we talked to about this a little bit before, where you have kind of more the shaman and the people that do all the various things.
Yeah.
And you are focusing on something that's different. So
Yeah,
yeah,
there are different ways to do this. Yes,
yeah, yeah.
totally.
Thank you. I think that's all from me. And we'll also post all your contact information, of course, so people could reach out to you directly
Yeah.
if they have any questions. So you're so lovely. I love chatting with you. And I could probably spend an extra hour just like picking your brain and hearing your stories.
Thanks. I was
Yeah,
really a fun conversation. I enjoyed it very much.
sweet.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much. All right. You guys have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.